have just gotten a suspect for the Idaho College murders. His name is Brian Koberger and he's 28 years old. He was a criminology student who studied just miles from the campus. FBI and SWAT tracked Koberger down to the Poconos Mountains in Pennsylvania. SWAT entered his location and detained him instantly. He appeared before a judge on Monday and will face criminal charges in Idaho. A motive has not been stated, but cops say this is just the beginning. But why do you think he did it? As more news develops, I'll keep you guys updated. In that trash can is his teacher. 24-year-old Colleen Ritter was a teacher who had 2 students staying after for tutoring. When she asked 14-year-old Philip Chisholm where he was from, he became visibly upset, so she changed the subject. Then while going to the bathroom, Philip followed her, pulled out a box cutter, and unalived her. He then took advantage of her, placed her in a trash can, dumped her in the woods, put a new set of clothes on, and used her credit card, taking himself to the movies and buying himself food with her money. He was later found with her underwear and cards. He was sentenced to 60 years in prison. Now supposedly when she asked him where he was from, it reminded him of his parents' divorce, triggering him. She unalived her best friend for $9 million. 18-year-old Danny Brimar from Alaska met a millionaire online named Tyler. They started talking and Tyler had a request. He told Danny that if she unalived someone and showed him proof, that he would reward her with $9 million. Danny, wanting the money, decided she would unalive her best friend, Cynthia Hoffman. So she got some help. They tied her friend up and took her friend out with one to the head. But it turns out Tyler was actually a man named Darren from Indiana, who was actually just catfishing them the whole time. Both in the Friends That Help now awaiting trial, facing up to 30 to 99 years. Did you see the secret question I hid in this video? Dumbest ways people have died. Michael Warner from Texas was an alcoholic, but couldn't consume alcohol anymore because of a throat condition he had. So he thought about another way of doing it, by using enema tubes to get drunk, which means he'd use them tubes to shove liquor up his peach. He inserted 100 fluids, which is more than 4 bottles of wine up there. His blood alcohol level was so high, he passed away from alcohol poisoning. Did you see the secret question I hid in this video?
Park here. Park here? My boyfriend, you're parked next to my boyfriend's car. It's a parking lot. I can park next to anybody I want. You're parked next to my boyfriend, though. Okay, can nobody park in a parking lot next to your boyfriend's car? Get out of my spot. This isn't... Don't park next to my boyfriend. Are you crazy? Are you insecure? Are you crazy? I know you not just say that to me. What is your problem? Get out of my parking spot. You're parked next to my boyfriend. Are you okay? Are you?
A 21-year-old woman named Yareni Rios Gonzalez was pulled over after being a suspect of road rage. She was then handcuffed and put into a patrol car. While she was waiting, the police were searching her car, but they had parked their patrol car that she was in on the train tracks. As they were searching her car for any weapons, Gonzalez saw a train coming. She screamed and tried to get out the patrol car, but she was handcuffed, and none of the cops seemed to have heard her screams or the train coming for some weird reason. Before they knew it, the train hit the patrol car. Gonzalez survived. She suffered 9 broken ribs, a fractured sternum, back and head injuries, a broken arm, and she's still in the hospital needing multiple surgeries. My question is, why did the cops park the patrol car on the train tracks? Like and follow, because my next story will shock you.
Enjoying your ramen? Well, ramen noodles don't digest.
There is a stomach-turning viral video that could have you rethinking ramen noodles for dinner. An experiment by local doctors allows you to see what happens after you eat the processed food. You're inside the belly of someone who's just sucked down a package of ramen noodles. A meal college kids and people on a budget know well. Chemically preserved for a long shelf life, no one's ever seen what happens to the noodles once inside the stomach. Until now.
People just have this macabre interest in terms of what's going on in their bodies when they can't see it.
Now we can. 32 hours of video thanks to this. A smart pill, a camera the size of a multivitamin swallowed at mealtime. time.
What we're seeing here is a stomach contracting back and forth as it's trying to grind up the ramen noodle.
For comparison, the study subjects also ate fresh, homemade ramen noodles on a different day. Here's a look at both at 20 minutes and 2 hours. A striking difference.
The most striking thing about
He unalived his kids because he thought they were turning into monsters. Matthew Coleman was a loving dad who loved to surf and even teach his kids how to surf. He called them his little treasures and thanked God for them every day. He appeared to have the perfect life on social media. But everything took a turn one day. Matthew had driven away with the kids without telling his wife and then stabbed them to death with a spearfishing gun. He believed they were going to grow into monsters and that his wife possessed serpent DNA and that she passed it on to the children. It turns out that he became really obsessed with Illuminati conspiracy theories and said he started seeing visions that he had to save the world from monsters. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. Why do you think he started seeing visions? Like and follow because my next story is crazy. Facts about Jeffrey Dahmer that they don't mention in the series. Jeffrey Dahmer worked at a chocolate factory at one point of his life, and in his work locker, he kept the decaying head of one of his victims. In 1990, he tried drugging another victim, but he accidentally drugged himself, and the guy stole all of his stuff from him. Police found human remains on every single utensil in Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. Like this video and follow for part 2. His mom cut off all her daughter's hair as a punishment.
No physical discipline. Mom, don't mom me. No. You had your warning. You had your chance. I told you to listen. I told you being cute ain't sh**. I told you to do good in school. Yes, this is what happens when you don't listen to your mom.
And she claims that it isn't emotional abuse and that her daughter is fine.
So cool. Do you hate me? No. Why is TikTok saying that you hate me? Yo, you guys don't know the bond me and this kid have, eh?
But comment below, what do you think? Is this okay? He had to gain 100 pounds to save his father. An 11-year-old in China named Lu Ziquan has a father that's suffering from blood cancer and requires a bone marrow transplant. But in order for him to donate his bone marrow to his father, he needed to have a body weight of at least 100 pounds. So he had to force himself to eat, and he keeps eating to save his father. The only problem is, he only had 3 months to do it. But eventually it paid off, and the bone marrow transplant was a success. Merry Christmas, everyone. Sometimes your own child can take your life. Last month on November 21st, a 10-year-old Milwaukee boy was woken up by his mother in the morning. Her name was Quiana Mann. As he awoke, he asked his mother could he have a virtual reality headset, but her response was no, not today. She then went downstairs to the basement to do laundry. He then went in her bedroom, grabbed a gun, went downstairs behind her, and before she could react, he shot her in the face. He then put the gun in the closet, told his 26-year-old sister, then went on his mother's laptop to her Amazon account and ordered himself the VR headset. Now the crazy part is that they had security cameras in the house, but the day of the shooting, they were all unplugged. And the night before the shooting, he had stolen the key to the gun safe. The boy had been recently going to therapy for his anger issues. His sister said after he showed no remorse, he didn't even shed a tear, only saying that he's sorry for what had to happen. Like and follow because my next story is crazy. This is why you should never let anyone kiss on your babies. Savina and her mother was at a family member's house when a family member kissed on Savina. A little while later, she started developing bumps all over her face. Her mom was concerned because she was bleeding all over her t-shirt. It turns out that their own family member had herpes. It got so bad Savina could barely eat because the pain hurt so much, causing her to become extremely dehydrated and lose a lot of weight. Luckily, Savina got treated and eventually started healing. Spread this video and follow because my next story will blow your mind. You have to stop making love in movie theaters. Sorry to let you know, but most modern theaters have cameras facing the audience. This is to help catch and deter piracy. It's also used just in case a crime occurs. So yeah, if you were thinking about getting freaky or was planning on it, Billy, who's in charge of your local theater security, probably saw you. Hope your nasties have a nice day. Studies show that your cat doesn't care about you. See, unlike cats, dogs were domesticated to hunt, protect, and travel with us, while cats were only used for pest control. So your furry friend only sees you as a slave who feeds and gives them free massages. Think of it this way. Dogs are like, wow, they feed me. They must be gods. And cats are like, wow, they feed me. I must be a god. This 33-year-old man allegedly dated a 16-year-old, and nobody said anything. Everyone knows Paul Walker, movie star and known for movies like The Fast and the Furious. But what some didn't know, or rather ignored, is he liked dating underage women. When he passed away at 40, his girlfriend at the time, Jasmine, was 23. But they started their relationship when she was 16, and he was 33. And that wasn't the only time. Before Jasmine, he dated Brianna, who was allegedly 16 and he was 28 at the time of their relationship. And no one in Hollywood batted an eye. Did you see the secret question I hid in this video? You won't believe what this mean old man did to this waitress. Melina Salazar worked at a small cafe in Texas. She loved work, but there was one customer that everyone hated, an old man named Walter Schrood. For 16 years, he would visit and complain about everything, including the food and service. He hated the waitresses. After a while, they all started refusing to serve him, except for Melina. She knew that he was a war veteran and that he had lost his kids and his wife, and that he was living without them for a long time. But one day he just stopped coming to the cafe, and all the waitresses cheered. But Melina was worried. It turns out he had passed away. The next day, a man walked into the cafe looking for Melina. It turns out the old man had left her his house, car, and $50,000. Melina burst into tears. Turns out, even though he was mean, she was the only one that had showed him love, company, and kindness. Always remember, we're never promised tomorrow.
Hey Mom, it's Brad. Just wanted to call and let you know, I'm sure that you heard that a plane crashed into World Trade Center 1. We're fine, we're in World Trade Center 2. I'm obviously alive and well over here, but obviously a pretty scary experience. I saw a guy fall out of probably the 91st story all the way down. So, you're welcome to give a call here. I think we'll be here all day, but give me a call back later. Love you.
This case's twist will shock you. On the evening of 2014, Sarah Sands had downed 2 bottles of wine, put on a hoodie, and left her apartment carrying a knife. She then walked to a 77-year-old man's house named Michael Plested and took his life. She then walked back to her house and gave herself up to the police. But why did she do it? Turns out that man's name wasn't Michael Plested. He had legally changed it through a secret loophole in the law, which allows you to do so when applying for a new passport, because he was actually on the SO list for messing with children. And it turns out he had lured her 3 sons into his apartment, 12-year-old Bradley and the 11-year-old twins Alfie and Reese, and essayed them. In court, Sarah claimed that she will never be able to take the nightmares that happen to her boys away from them when they're screaming at night. She got 7.5 years, and now that she's out, she fights the law, campaigning to stop other offenders from changing their name through that same loophole. Did you see the secret question I hid in this video? This had to be the worst death imaginable. This was the entrance to the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah. It was known for its extremely narrow passageways, having a length of approximately 1,355 feet, and it was about 145 feet deep. A lot of thrill seekers would go through this narrow cave, but one man met his fate. That man's name was John Edward Jones, who was recently married and a father of 1, his wife being pregnant with their 2nd child. John was a kind soul. Everybody loved him. He had a bright sense of humor, and he took care of his daughter. He loved her very much. But sadly, he wouldn't get the chance to see his daughter grow up. At 8 p.m. on November 24, 2009, John and 9 of his friends decided to go enter the Nutty Putty Cave. Everything was going smooth for roughly an hour. They had made it so far in the cave, and they could have stopped. But John wanted to up the challenge and tried going through a really narrow section called the birth canal. Unfortunately for him, he decided to be the first one out of the group to go. But it turns out he might have not entered the birth canal, but instead he accidentally entered a section of the cave called Ed's Push, a passageway that led to nowhere. But he kept pushing forward, inch by inch, until he couldn't go anymore. He had gotten stuck on part of the tunnel that was bent downward, leading him to be upside down. The area was about the size of an opening of a small washing machine, while John was about 6 feet and 200 pounds. John was stuck. He was 100 feet below the ground. His friends tried and tried, but they couldn't get him out. As much as John tried to wiggle, nothing happened. He couldn't budge. Every time the friends thought they were getting him out, he just slid in more. A rescue team was soon called in, and when they finally reached John, he said, "Thank you, but I would really like to get out of here." As the rescuers were able to see John's feet, they tried everything from oiling and lubing up the walls. They even tried drilling through the rock and hooking him up to contraptions to try and tug him out, and still nothing. At one point, they were able to pull him back up several feet, but the rope broke and he slid right back down. After 10 hours of suffering and being stuck upside down, John sadly died. Leaving behind his wife and kids, they had no choice but to seal up the passageway with John's body still stuck inside till this day. There's a memorial now sitting there for him, and that's not all. His wife has since moved on to a new man, but she will always remember the man who she shares 2 children with. Rest in peace, John. This dog saved its owner's life. Haley Moore was walking her dog when all of a sudden she experienced a seizure and collapsed on the floor. Clover immediately started licking her face in hopes to wake her up. After a car drove past them, Clover had an idea. She ran into the middle of the street to block traffic in order to get attention from one of the drivers. Finally, a white pickup truck came by and immediately started to help Haley. He called 911 and brought her to the hospital. And Haley made a full recovery, Clover being a true hero. Speaking of, let me tell you about the dumbest ways people have actually died. By the way, I'm with my son Milo, so yeah, he's gonna tell the story with me. A Brazilian man in 2002 saw a beehive, and this idiot decided, instead of calling pest control, I'll try to do it myself. So what does he do? He grabs a freaking flamethrower. A flamethrower for some bees. That kind of adds up. I mean, I would probably do the same. But that's not even what killed him. He put a plastic bag over his head as a helmet and forgot to add breathing holes. His wife found him a couple hours later, unalived underneath the beehive. But no, that's not the craziest. Y'all gonna laugh at this one. Why do people always try to keep wild animals as pets? By the way, are you a cat person or a dog person? Comment down below. So this guy had a pet hippo that he was raising for 6 years, and he would tell people that it was like a human. It was like a son to him. Tell me why this hippo ended up biting holes in this man like he was Swiss cheese. And the crazy part is, he would like to ride this hippo to show off. Stick to dogs. All they do is poop on your pillow like Amber Heard and sleep all day in your apartment like they work hard and pay bills. Now this last one might make you think that karma is real. You see that fine girl right there? Should I get her number? I should get a number. So Michael Goodwin was a convicted murderer and had just avoided the electric chair because his attorney got his sentence reduced to life in prison. A few days later, he was in his cell repairing his headphones that were attached to his TV. Hold up, y'all. I'm about to go into the grocery store because tomorrow we are making a pineapple burger for tomorrow's video. But I'm gonna need y'all to watch Milo real quick. I'll be right back, cutie.
Finally, the annoying man left.
So we got the stuff, watch tomorrow's video, it's gonna be lit. So he was in the cell room repairing headphones, but his headphones were still hooked up to the TV, and he was sitting on his prison toilet made of metal. He decided to bite into the headphones wire, giving himself his own electric chair. Angelina Jolie hired a hitman on herself. When speaking about her mental health, she said that being taken out by a hitman would be easier for her family rather than doing it to herself. When coming up with the plan and actually hiring the hitman in New York, he stopped her for a second and talked her out of it, asking her to wait at least 2 months before making her final decision. She listened, and luckily, a month later, she decided not to go through with it. People are mad at this guy for dating this woman. Shauna is a 23-year-old woman trapped in an 8-year-old's body. She had trouble finding love because of her condition until she found Dan. The two fell in love with each other and started dating, but the internet started labeling Dan as a creep for dating someone who resembles a child, saying that it's sick that he's dating her. Sadly, this became too much for Dan, and he ended things, choosing to just be friends instead. Comment below your thoughts on all this. This teacher only got 60 days in jail after taking advantage of her student. 32-year-old Marco Baldine was an English teacher in Texas. That's where she met her victim, a 12-year-old boy who she started talking to over Fortnite, and then soon texting him, having explicit conversations. After his 13th birthday, they did it. And this continued for 3 years, sometimes even in her classroom. She even moved into his apartment complex to be closer to him after her divorce. The boy soon reported it to authorities, and Marka didn't like this. She threatened him that she would unalive herself, and that he'd never go to college, and told him he would go to jail. After finally pleading guilty, she was given 60 days in jail, and only has to write the victim an apology letter. But she doesn't have to do the 60 days for a year because she has just given birth. Speaking of school, if you're having trouble right now and need an assignment done, go to edubirdie.com. They'll help you get it done in no time with also getting you a good grade. Use code 10, INFLU10 to get 10% off. They helped me pass a lot of my classes a few years ago. The person who sent you just wants you to stop waking them up. Studies show that being disturbed while asleep can cause irreversible brain damage. Mice who were tested and sleep deprived lost 25% of their brain cells. And getting less than 6 hours of sleep causes weight gain. Studies show that people who were sleep deprived ate more the next day. So leave people alone when they're sleeping. And that's why this is the dating game killer. Luckily, the girl that won the date with him decided not to go because backstage she said he had creepy vibes. Her instincts were right. You see, Rodney Alcala was already on the FBI's most wanted list. He pressured a little girl named Tyler Kylie Shapiro into his car and brutally attacked her in an inch of her life in LA. But he ended up only serving 34 months because the child's parents didn't want her testifying in court. Little did the FBI know he had killed the girl prior while he was attending NYU in her New York apartment. Right after serving the 34 months, he was arrested right after for 2 years for selling marijuana to a teen that he also abducted, but was never charged with the abduction. Feeling on top of the world, he decided to go on a game show. Somebody watching this game show noticed that he looked awfully familiar to a wanted criminal who killed a girl named Robin Samso. Police investigated and found Robin's earrings in his storage garage, along with photos of women that he had taken over the years. It's believed based on those photos that he killed over 100 women. Rodney died in prison in 2021 at the age of 77. This TikToker revealed that her dad unalived himself because she got married to a black man. What's up, everybody? Promise y'all updates. Andrew Tate is being detained and questioned for money laundering, not human trafficking. The news outlets got it wrong. But anyways, follow this page for more updates. I'll keep y'all posted, I promise. Your cat would eat you if it could, and it shows signs of that every day. Domestic cats share traits with the African lion, meaning they are naturally dominant predators. Why do you think they're always randomly attacking you? Studies say that cats do not see us as mom and dad, but see us as other bigger hairless cats, and that we're lucky that they're small and have smaller teeth and claws. Or we'd probably all end up dead. Did I mention that a lady who owned 20 cats died this year and her body was eaten by them? This is why you should be careful what you eat. In 1990, Joe Matheny opened up a burger stand. It became very popular, but what many didn't know is that they were eating burgers made out of humans. See, Joe had a rough childhood, and as an adult, him and his wife were addicted to that white rock. One day his wife left him with their baby and ran away with her pimp. This made Joe angry. That night, he searched under a bridge looking for his wife and her pimp because he wanted to end their lives. But when he couldn't find them, he decided to take his anger out on other dope heads and homeless people around the area. That night, he unalived 5 people in 7 hours. He was finally caught and blamed for 2 of those murders, but he only spent 18 months in jail because of the lack of evidence. Once he got out, he realized he had an addiction for unaliving people, this time taking his victims' meat and opening up a burger stand. When he eventually ran out of meat, he went on another spree to get more, but eventually one of his victims got away, and he was caught and police arrested him. When talking to the cop, he said he would sell pork rolls and human meat mixed together all the time, saying if you season them just right, they both tasted the same. People are mad at Tom Brady for posting this picture with his son. Now in the picture you can see his son sitting poolside in his lap, and some people believe that this is inappropriate and a teen shouldn't be sitting in their dad's lap like this. But what do you think about this situation? Do you think people are overacting, or? She ate her sugar daddy. 23-year-old Omaima Nelson was a successful model living in Los Angeles. She had met and married a man named Bill Nelson in 1991, who she met at a bar. During their relationship, she was subjected to all sorts of abuse, physical, sexual, Bill even taking advantage of her without her permission some nights. That's when one day she snapped and took Bill's life with a knife. She then took him apart piece by piece, cooking and boiling every bit of him, even barbecuing his ribs. She then put on red lipstick, a red dress, and a hat and dined on him, as if it were a fancy dinner. She received a life in prison. Did you see the secret question I hid in the video?